So, Kate, who are we canceling today?
How about Pat McAfee?
You're going to have to fill me in a little bit. I know that he does something sportsy.
Yeah, he's an ESPN guy, kind of a douchebag, former Barstool bro.
What's Barstool?
You know how we joke about how New Jersey is the armpit of America?
Yes.
Barstool's kind of like the armpit of the internet. And today we shall give it a fresh swipe of deodorant.
In Jersey, we usually do Axe body spray.
Hey everyone, I'm Caitlin Burns.
And I'm Christine Grimaldi.
And you're listening to Cancel Me Daddy,
the show where we take a closer look at all the panic around cancel culture.
with thoughtful analysis.
And verbal shitposting.
Hello, Christine. Hello.
Hi.
We missed last week. We've been busy.
Yes. Deadlines. Writing things.
Yes. You know, looking at my investment account collapse was fun.
Oh, tariff related.
It is tariff related, actually.
Oh my God.
If you want to help me survive the tariff economy, join our Patreon. You can get access to early episodes. Yeah, it's not great right now. Things are not great.
Yeah, like on every level.
But massive protests everywhere.
Yes.
Like my friend in like Spokane, Washington got stuck in protest traffic, which I'm like, hell yeah, Spokane, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got stuck in a little protest traffic in New York City this weekend.
Did you?
Yeah, and I was glad to see it.
So I am so excited about the show today. We have the amazing Frankie de la Cretaz on the show. Amazing independent journalist, award-winning, good friend, returns to the pod. So they were on our Super Bowl episode last year.
I've really admired them as a journalist for a very long time.
Very good journalist, very good friend of mine. Not as close as we used to be, and I regret that. Yeah, we used to hang out a lot when I was in Maine. And then when I moved to DC, we kind of lost touch for a while, but we've been more in touch lately. So it's been good.
Yeah, I think the Zooms and traveling a little bit helps.
Yes. But yeah, I love this interview, so I don't want to waste any more time. Let's jump right into it. Joining us now is my good friend, returning to the podcast for their second appearance, award-winning independent journalist Frankie de la Cretaz. Frankie, how are you doing?
I'm good. You got it. Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so sorry about the last name. It's just...
It's the one thing I really wish I could return to my ex-husband.
So, Frankie, you've been on the show before. Of course, you did our Super Bowl special last year where we talked about Taylor Swift and that whole thing, and I loved that conversation. So when I saw this story going around the internet, I was like, okay, I know exactly who I want to ask to be on. So we're very grateful to have you. Basically, I saw this story in The Athletic the other day about this poor girl who goes to an SEC school. I forget which one, Mississippi?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, yeah. And this TV personality, Pat McAfee, brought up an internet rumor about this poor girl at Ole Miss on his ESPN show. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, it was a draft-related, an NFL draft show.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I heard about this and I was like, okay, this is like primetime Cancel Me Daddy real estate, because this poor girl got thrust into the spotlight from this. But like, for our listeners who didn't read the story, can you give us like a quick summary of what happened?
Yeah, so Pat McAfee, who, for folks that don't know who he is, he has an ESPN show. He's kind of like, I'd call him like a talk jock a little bit. It's like vaguely sports related, but he mostly kind of just like talks crap and blows a lot of hot air. But he's one of their most popular personalities, I would say. He was recording a show for the NFL draft, and he used that, I guess because we were talking about college, to segue into a rumor about a college student that he had seen on X. He does not name this college student, but gives enough details that people who were familiar with the rumor knew who he was talking about. And so the rumor had spread on Yik Yak is an app that I guess a lot of college students are talking on. I feel very old saying that. I had never heard of it, but it's some sort of an app.
Are we all elder millennials on this podcast today?
I think we are.
I think we are, yeah.
I'm very online and consider myself pretty plugged in, but had not heard of this one. But it was a rumor that spread there, and from there it migrated to X, where vaguely sports-related personalities like Barstool, etc., amplified it, and that is where it kind of picked up steam and then made the jump to the Pat McAfee show. So after that happened, this rumor then, spread, and the listeners identified her by name, and the rumor was that she had sex with her boyfriend's dad. She's an 18-year-old girl. She's a freshman at Ole Miss. And the result has been a harassment campaign that has rendered her basically unable to leave her dorm room. They had to get security involved because she was no longer safe on campus. Her mom's house was swatted, so police officers showed up with guns. And this has all happened to this girl who is not a public figure. She's a private citizen who has said the rumor isn't even true. So there's a lot of, I think, aspects of this that we can probably talk about as being really problematic. But I think, that is the crux of the story, which is, how this person with a very large platform has targeted someone for seemingly no reason and really brought a lot of hell into her life.
Well, yeah, it strikes me as, first of all, it's inappropriate to bring up on a draft show.
Yes, and if you read Katie Strang's reporting, she's a wonderful reporter. For people who are not familiar with her work, she does a lot of reporting and has won awards for her reporting on sexual violence and harassment and things in sports. And she notes that when you're watching the show, it's Adam Schefter, who is the ESPN's NFL guy. He's their football scoops guy.
He's the guru guy.
Yeah, who's paid extremely ridiculous amounts of money. He is apparently quite uncomfortable and tries to bring up Ole Miss's quarterback or a draft prospect from Ole Miss as a way to be well, what does this have to do with, to kind of pivot, because he's incredibly uncomfortable. Because this has absolutely nothing to do with the NFL draft.
And then this McAfee guy, is he former Barstool?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We could Google it. He had to apologize for something last year. Now I'm trying to remember. What did he apologize for? Do you remember this?
No, I have not.
Okay, hold on.
I have not been in tune with the sports stuff in quite a while.
Well, I guess my question is this sports stuff? Is this the manosphere? Is this the Venn diagram of where they connect?
Oh, he had to apologize for comments about Caitlin Clark. He called her a white bitch. That was just last year, so not great comments about women.
Yeah.
I mean, he's known for saying really inappropriate things, and because he's as popular as he is, he really gets a pass. I would say, I do not believe he's former Barstool, but I would say Barstool created kind of the blueprint for what he does. Oh, wait, he is former Barstool.
Okay, I did hear that.
He's a former football player. He's a former NFL player.
Yeah.
Who went into stand-up.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And he joined
That's
Barstool when he retired in 2016. And he hosted the Pat McAfee show, was first on the SiriusXM Barstool channel.
Yeah, okay. I knew there was a Barstool connection in there. So Barstool, again, I don't want to be the Barstool whisperer here. I think Frankie actually knows much more than I do, but I do remember Barstool when it was a small Boston sports site. Not even a sports site. It was this weird mix of just misogynist crap. The sports thing, I never viewed as their primary. They would feature like funny sports stories or weird sports stories, or if one of the Boston teams was playing for a championship, they would make posts about that. But it wasn't like they weren't breaking down, oh, the Red Sox, hitting sucks type of analysis. It was more of
kind of like sports gossip for bros.
Yeah. It was like I was gonna say it was like TMZ for like sports guys.
Yeah, like frat boys was really their like original audience. And I think the thing that you have to remember about Barstool, so their name is Barstool Sports, which we haven't said yet, which is why we're talking about them as a sports site. The thing to remember about them is that they are a product of the era in which they were born. 2003, they started as this print edition that was in the MBTA, which is Boston Subway. So you could get the paper at the like MBTA, and it had like, I don't know, a bunch of really poorly written things, and like some smoke show is what they call them. The like hot girl.
Are they the originator of that term, smoke show? To mean hot girl?
Yes,
I think
they are. The smoke show, which has become really like colloquialism, really comes from Barstool. But yeah, it was started by Dave Portnoy back in 2003. He was like, I think living in his like parents' house in Milton or something. But that's what it was. It was just like a pamphlet that you got for free at the Subway, and it became an internet blog around 2007. And so that really early aughts brand of misogyny that we have, I think just recently as a culture really started to look back at and reckon with the impact of the Britney Spears era of the way we talked about, women. Barstool is a product of that era, and everything that they do really kind of stems from that. And so if you think about the kind of frat boy that would have been reading a site like that in that time, like that's the content that they were putting out.
Oh God, it's like the worst of the elder millennial holdouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, and I think the important thing to know, too, about that time is the internet was still sort of the Wild West in a way. Blogs were really big, and Barstool was a blog. That's what they were at first. And so
message boards were also really big,
yes.
and they had a message board at the time, which I think they've since shuttered.
Yes, so the comment section, when comments were a really big thing, I remember at the time I was really active in, like, the comments on, like, Jezebel, like, things like that. Comment sections on these websites was a big thing. It's where people met each other, and they had these conversations. And so there wasn't moderation. There wasn't any real understanding of how these communities could interact with each other, and what the inevitable fallout of a bunch of people dehumanizing women on the internet together and then talking about them in the comments. There was no actual, I think, we didn't know at the time that the logical conclusion of that was probably going to be some form of harassment campaigns. Like the term doxing didn't exist yet, but this is we start to see kind of the beginning of those kinds of campaigns. But because of the way that they're talking about women on the site, it creates this attitude among the commenters, and that is kind of, we still see that permeating sports talk radio, etc. today.
Yeah, and I remember that site had New England men that were my age in a chokehold.
Yeah.
And I guess you could classify me as a reader at the time, and I want to say I didn't know any better, but I kind of did. I knew it was cringe what they were saying. But also there was a social aspect of it in that nobody knew I was trans. I was deeply, deeply closeted and repressed. And all of my friends played sports. They were all jocks, right? So if I wanted to have a conversation with one of my jock friends, it's like, oh, did you see what they put on Barstool today? Mm-hmm. And if I didn't know that, I was not really a part of the conversation. So it became a place of, this is a place I need to know in order to survive in my social circles.
Yeah.
But I still feel deep shame over even referring to myself as a former Barstool user, seeing what they've done since then and some of the harassment campaigns they've run against good friends of mine now.
Yeah, but I think, that was the culture, right? At the
Yeah.
time, like we've talked about this. I was on, if people remember, there was a Tucker Max. Actually, I kind of think I was on those message boards. I was very much like a pick me cool girl. I was not like other girls, Spoiler alert, I'm not a girl. So, right? I had similar. No,
you were literally not like the other girls.
Literally not like the other girls, but I think that I actually think of Dave Portnoy and what Barstool does as sort of like Tucker Max for jocks at the time, right? Because Tucker Max really, I think, he was like pickup artistry before it was like pickup artistry, kind of, the dudes that like didn't see themselves as cool guys, but wanted to like feel like they could get women, feel like that brand. And Barstool was like, no, you're a frat boy and a jock. You already know you're cool. And like, that's who they were really speaking to.
I think it's an important like line that you just drew from the past to the present, because I would have said that all this stuff is new, right? Like harassment campaigns are, maybe in the past several years, and like, Twitter and X in the past several years, but it really is a cultural holdover. And it's so interesting because I was on Instagram earlier today and I saw a youth who posted a video about seeing like all of mostly like wine moms with children at the protests over the weekend, and like older people, like maybe like who had protested in the 60s. And this person was kind of lamenting that they didn't see young people there. And I feel like maybe because elder millennials really went through this and like we experienced so much of like that Britney Spears misogyny and internalized all those messages, like we've kind of like really turned against it now. And we are more activated, I think, against this kind of culture. But this is now infecting like a younger generation.
It is the younger generation, if we think about it, that was raised on the internet, and we can look directly at the statistics that we're hearing kind of everywhere of this massive gap in like Gen Z men and women in terms of their conservatism and their values. And I think we talk a lot about, the manosphere and incel culture and the way that young men have really been radicalized. And I don't think you can, and by the internet, and I don't think you can talk about the Joe Rogans and, all of this without actually looking back at Barstool Sports, who really is the blueprint for a lot of this. And I think that often it gets dismissed in terms of really the impact that it's had on mainstream culture and mainstream like masculinity for young men.
Yeah. And it's weird because I don't want to shit on young people. Like I feel like Kate and I have talked about this in the podcast, like when we were in middle school and high school, it was like the "you were so gay" thing, which was just like so hurtful and so wrong at the time, and an insult that I'm sure I used at the time as well. So I know that like the young people have like the youths have come a long way. I know that they're like more accepting about themselves, about being trans, about being queer, but there is like almost this like weird, when you talk about like that split, especially for like masculinity, I feel like almost a toxic masculinity is coming up like through the young people who are online so much, instead of like kind of the old trope of like the older you get, the more conservative you get. I don't know, like the older I get, the more I'm like Free Luigi, like let's get you out, buddy. I
don't know that I agree with you on that. I think as a generation, I think millennials are still more conservative than Gen Z is. I wrote a bunch of articles around election time about how exit polling showed that like there actually wasn't a massive wave of Gen Z voters for Trump, and it was still older voters that put him into office. So I tend to look at the manosphere stuff with skepticism on the political side of things, whether it's influencing votes or not. But I do think there is an influence on how a certain segment of younger Gen Z men treat women because of how they've been exposed to, certain influencers. But I also think that those influencers have always been there. Like, my brother, who is Gen X, listened to Rush Limbaugh all the time, which was overtly political, but he was also a raging misogynist. And then my generation had
Howard Stern. Think about him. He's not political, but he's a misogynist.
Right. Dave Portnoy I would put in that same category. Yeah. And just because there's new names like Andrew Tate who are influencing younger audiences doesn't mean that this is necessarily a new thing. I just think it's easier to find these places because we're all together on the same social media sites, Except, I don't know what yik yak is.
Yeah, I think it's not new, but the internet has changed its shape and widened its reach.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Can you link in the show notes to your article? Because we've had this conversation before too.
My article?
Yeah, about, the impact on politics. Because we've had this conversation before too. Like, is it more of a cultural impact or more of a political impact?
I'll send you what I wrote. I think it was the day after the election.
That oof was, for that time.
I did not want to be working on the MSNBC election desk that day.
Yeah, no shit.
Somebody else wrote the trans people are fucking screwed now story, and it wasn't me, and I was like, thank you.
I saw that one and I was like, is this Kate? No, it wasn't.
No, it was hilarious because it was me, and I think the person who wrote that, I don't remember their name, but I think they were a Hispanic woman, and she wrote the trans story and I wrote the immigration story.
Allyship.
Yeah, swapping how screwed. Yeah. Oh my God.
I know that you were on Blue Sky last week talking about how you have had reporting about Barstool and how they have instigated harassment campaigns before. I don't want you to give away the core of your story, but can you talk about the ways in which a Barstool, I don't want to say led, but maybe how Barstool instigates these internet campaigns that maybe they're not out there saying oh, go harass this person, but
right.
They leave. It seems like I'm gonna let you talk.
Well, I think this is also important when we talk about the current story, because Pat McAfee did not say this girl's name.
Yeah.
And she still ended up with her mother's house swatted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this gives a plausible deniability from, I'm going to use the term leader, but head figure, right? Because Pat McAfee's the one with the microphone and all the listeners, right?
Right.
So whether he wants to call himself a leader or not, he has followers, he has fans, and he has people who listen to the things that he says and are impacted by those things.
Yeah.
So he has some level of plausible deniability because he's like, I didn't name her. I said nobody's name, right? What other people did with what I said is on them, not me. And that is the Dave Portnoy playbook, because when Barstool started, it was a kind of a one-man blog. I don't know. It was the early aughts. If he was anything like me, he was on a lot of Adderall. This man was prolific, okay, is what I will say. There was a lot of blogs.
Yes.
And, there's no editing. I had a blog spot at the time.
No editing on my Patreon page? Couldn't be me.
Okay. Kate, I've been working with an editor for so long now that as soon as I had enough newsletter subscribers to make it feasible, I hired an editor.
Oh, wow.
Not for everything. I still shit post, but when I have any reporting or an op-ed. Because nothing, the way I think that I was just raw dogging the internet, and I had readers. Okay? But not like Dave Portnoy had readers. He was really, really raw dogging the internet. And so he would just kind of blog multiple times a day, whatever his thoughts were. And he would say horrible things about women or I guess I'm going to use quotes around the word complimentary things about women he perceived to be hot, but degrading and dehumanizing and objectifying things. And he would complain about people who had said things about him, things that he perceived to be personal slights. A random college student who wrote an op-ed for her student newspaper, whatever it was. And he wasn't saying, go harass this person, right? He was saying this person is an idiot and they're so stupid and can you believe they're saying this stuff about me? And then in the comments section, the commenters would take it from there. Mm-hmm. And it would build on each other. This is how so for lack of a better word, like mobs work, right?
Yeah.
This is how this happens. They rile each other up. And so one person is, going and tracking down information. People were getting doxxed in these comments before that was like a thing,
Yeah.
and they're riling each other up. And then again, there's plausible deniability because Dave Portnoy never actually told them to do that. They did that on their own, but it's happening in those comment sections. And you can see that has changed right now. I don't even, the comment sections, at some point they transitioned to a new server and everything somehow, all their old material somehow got wiped from the internet. How did that happen?
Weird.
Really weird how that happened. But now
Yeah.
there's subreddits and there's back channels and there's, people used, X when it was Twitter back in the day. The way that they're organizing these campaigns, it morphs as the internet morphs, but it is the same in that you have this, this leader of, in Barstool, they're called stoolies. These are people who kind of worship the ground that these men walk on. And at first it was just Dave Portnoy, right? And then it has expanded to this empire that they have now. And it's not just Dave Portnoy. It's other people, KFC Barstool comes up in this story as well. And he has been there a very long time. He has really played up the plausible deniability card. He, for a long time, was like, I'm one of the good ones. I'm just funny. Doesn't matter that I'm on the Barstool network. And it doesn't matter that the people that listen to me are taking the things that I'm talking about and doing these awful things to other people with them because I didn't tell them to do that. And I think that's the key piece that we're seeing here with, Pat McAfee as well. He's like, oh, I didn't name her.
I'd be remiss to do an episode about Barstool without naming our podcast doppelganger, Call Her Daddy, which started out as a Barstool podcast. I don't think they have that affiliation anymore.
They don't.
But the one anecdote I'll say about them is that when it was announced that Kamala Harris was going on Call Her Daddy, I got a bunch of very, very excited texts from friends who were like, holy shit, you're interviewing the vice president. And I was like, no, that's not me.
Not yet, anyway.
Someday.
Yeah. Listen, I have interviewed Kamala Harris before, but not when she was running for president.
That's okay. You have an in with her now. She knows you.
Barstool has like this weird history of launching careers. Like,
yes.
I remember the YouTuber Jenna Marbles, started her YouTube career making Barstool videos, and like as soon as she got like an ounce of fame outside of the Barstool community, she fucking cut them off.
She did. I mean, Call Her Daddy left too, and
Yeah.
they got. I mean, there's only one of them. They were a pair.
Yeah.
But they got paid.
Yeah.
Like really paid.
So like this site has had influence for a very long time.
And I mean, they launched McAfee's career, right? He went
He
went from Barstool to Fox Sports before being hired by ESPN. So he launched, their career as well. They've also become the place where, I don't know if, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It's not disgruntled, but some of the more older school conservative, like talk radio kind of personalities who maybe haven't aged so well in their networks end up there. I'm thinking specifically of Kurt Minahan and Boston
oh my god,
Sports Talk Radio. I guess I have to kind of disclose that I'm the reason he got fired from Boston Talk Radio, WEEI's morning show.
I did not know that.
And ended up at Barstool. Yeah. He
deserved it.
So I wrote a story in 2017 that I won an award for.
Yeah.
About it was for the Weekly Dig, which is Boston's alt-weekly newspaper.
Yes.
And it laid out the racism of both the morning show and also other things about partnerships that the Red Sox had. And the Red Sox games air on WEEI, so they're a partnered network. And while discussing my story on air, Kirk Minahan got so angry that he called the president of the Red Sox a pandering vomit by name. and got pulled off the air for a week, and then I think kind of had a mental breakdown, which he talks about. Anyway, he wasn't hired back. He really does not like me and has tried to have me on his show multiple times over the years, his Barstool show. And they never allude to the fact that they know who I am. And I'm like, there's no way that he does not know that I am that person. But so someone like Kirk Minahan, who, you know, got fired from, can we like say we know sports talk radio is really hard to like say so many bad things that you are not allowed back on. So he has found a home at Barstool as well. So they've kind of become this place that both launches careers, but also in the I'd say spirit of cancel me daddy, people who have been canceled other places are given a safe platform, you know, to have their really loud and wrong and offensive opinions.
One could say Barstool is a purveyor of the cancel culture grift economy.
Yes.
I did want to make a disclosure really quick that I did used to sell advertising for WEEI in multiple cities. So I was never a listener. I found them obnoxious, to be honest with you. But I did make a little bit of cash off of them.
No, they were obnoxious when that story aired and he got pulled off the air. His co-host continued to talk about me for like the next week. I got so many death. It's the only time I've had to have a security detail actually hired outside my house was Boston Talk Radio. Thanks so much, you guys.
Wait, I'm interested. Who paid for the security detail?
The Dig.
They're so good.
Shout out to Chris Ferrone.
Chris Ferrone is a real one. And as we talk, I think I could turn my camera. Of course, listeners won't be able to see this, but my first ever print article.
Oh.
Amazing.
That's the cover. And then that's the article I wrote about this trans skateboarder who skated across the United States and ended in Boston. So
That's
Chris
awesome.
Ferrone is the longtime editor of the Weekly Dig, and him and Jason Parmas. Sorry, Jason, I don't know how to say your last name. Have kind of single-handedly kept that paper going for a really, really long time. He's a real one, is how I would describe.
Seriously, Chris is great. The last name of the trans skateboarder was Little, and so the headline is "Little Goes a Long Way," and I was like, "Oh, that's so good, actually."
Oh, the headline of my story that got Kirk Minahan fired was called "The Yawkey Way" because
because of Yawkey Way. That's
because
really good.
Fenway Park was on Yawkey Way. Now David Ortiz Drive. Oh no, they renamed it Jersey Street. That's what it is. They reverted the name to Jersey Street.
Wait, why did they change it?
Because Yawkey was racist.
No, but why did they change it from David Ortiz?
It's a different. No, the bridge is David Ortiz Way.
Oh,
Yawkey Way is now just Jersey Street.
That's funny.
R.I.P. Yawkey Way.
Woke mind virus, I tell you.
They're coming for everyone.
That's the thing. They all think, I don't know, people who don't take this stuff seriously think this is all like internet subculture stuff, but this is like everywhere. Like this is in all of our phones and all of our ears, right? Like we talked about, I think you mentioned earlier, Frankie, like, the internet has so much of a further reach, but I also feel that there's been this consolidation too, right? Because we're not on these like stratified little blogs anymore. Even if you still go to like your Barstool or you go to your McAfee show, then they're all on X or they're all on Instagram. So it's all being then filtered through the same platforms like everyone is using.
It's a good point. I mean, I think just like generally as our culture has been, you know, there's so many fewer small businesses and everyone's kind of buying everything from, you know, Target and Walmart, you know. Similarly, we have seen the same kind of monopolization of the internet, in which whatever you want to say the equivalent of the big box stores is, but kind of everything is being consolidated onto certain platforms. And I don't know, it'll be interesting. I think we're seeing a resurgence of independent media and like the Substack network, which we do not need to get into, but like newsletters,
for another day.
Newsletters, etc. But you know, we're seeing, I think all of that is a natural reaction to the consolidation of a lot of these networks.
I think Barstool too spawned a lot of copycats, especially one I have at the top of my mind, which I will not say because the little fucker does not deserve the attention.
He doesn't. He's made some really nice memes about me, though. They're like the first image searches that come up when you...
He's named after an infamous fountain in Worcester, and that's all I will say, and has harassed multiple friends of mine. And, weirdly enough, was in my extended college circle of friends, although we never met.
Well, if anyone does know who you're talking about, my pronouns on his website are its.
Oh, God.
I don't
You are
mind.
not the only friend
fuck?
that he's harassed. Like,
That's
I have, oh my God, I have amazing memes of me with
Really?
I mean, I don't mind saying it. I've written about it on the internet, but it's all about me having herpes, like all over my face, like pictures
oh,
of
yes,
me.
of course.
And
yes.
for a really long time, they were the first images in Google image search when you
Yeah.
looked me up.
Anyway, I want to move on from this because, like, I'm going to say his name and then I am going to tell you the name after, but I don't want anybody else to know what the name is because he's like worse than the gum that gets stuck on your shoe. But he very much wanted to be like a Barstool guy.
Yeah.
But like what you're saying about like, you know, having memes like that, like what this story hinged on, like so much of it, like what fueled the rumor was like slut shaming, right? And the fact that this poor girl has to come out and say that it's not true, like that it's not true is besides the point, right? Like she's still carrying this shame. She's 18 years old. Like if she did have sex with this boyfriend's father, I mean, like the power dynamics of it would be like so fucked, like this older man. Like I know all of these like sports sites or whatever, like love like age of consent laws and like countdown to 18 and all this bullshit. But like, to me, I know it's important, you know, for her personally to say that it's not true. But every time she says it's not true, my heart breaks for her.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point because not only is she 18, she's a college student, she's not a public figure. She's like incredibly vulnerable in this way. And if you look at like the history of a lot of these targets of this kind of ire, like, you know, those of us that are journalists, not that we're like safe from it or that it's good, but we sometimes have newsrooms that can help us, or we can prepare and we know to like lock down our social media. There are things that we can do. It's kind of part of our job. People who are public figures also have a lot more safety mechanisms in place. This is somebody who lives on a college campus and had no idea that this was going to happen to her, no idea how to protect herself. And I think that, like, yes, historically you see that the people that they have often gone after the hardest are college-aged girls young women who really have, you know, absolutely no recourse and are the most vulnerable for a variety of reasons. And then that is also in this day and age to have that be your internet imprint before you've even like entered like your career, your life, like it's really, really messed up.
I hate this so much.
I hope he gets fired. I mean, he's facing some legal threats over this.
Well, yeah.
Which he should, of course.
Yeah, how much deniability do you have if you don't name the person? Like, I'm thinking about a certain former/current president who said that he didn't tell the mob to go to the Capitol, but said, I mean, he said in so many words, go to the Capitol and take it over. So, I mean, how much deniability do you have? You're
right. It's that there's the plausible deniability. I just looked this up. The headline that Forbes ran was Pat McAfee faces legal and ethical fallout over Ole Miss remarks. And I'm like, he would, wouldn't he?
Yeah. What's the takeaway from all of this for our listeners who maybe are just introduced to this? Like, what can they learn from this, or like how can they help?
I think something that I think about a lot, because, you know, these are people who, right, you know, Pat McAfee has the backing of ESPN, Barstool Sports has, you know, a whole like network behind them. And I think sometimes when people are like, well, they're really popular and a lot of people listen to them and whatever, they're just like talking shit, who cares? But I think something that, you know, Christine, you alluded to also that gets really overlooked is like the power dynamic at play here. And I think it's always really, really important to be thinking about who has the power in these situations and how that, you know, impacts the way that we perceive them, and also just the way that things play out in the world. Because I think that right? Like, this is an internet rumor that about an 18-year-old girl that was spread by like ESPN's like one of their most popular personalities. And so there are real power dynamics here that I think really need to be examined. And I think people that are in the position that someone like Pat McAfee is in need to be held to some sort of standard around that. As a journalist, I'm constantly thinking about power dynamics and who has the power and when am I punching up and when am I punching down. And I never, ever, ever want the fallout from my story, like, do as little harm as possible, right? For me, the marginalized people that I'm reporting on are the people whose concerns need to be centered. And so, you know, when you are a public figure like this, that, I believe, is part of your job. I think it is an absolute failure if you are not thinking about this and if networks aren't holding their, their personalities or employees to that standard.
That's really great.
Oh, good.
I'm sure a bunch of listeners are already going to be familiar with you since you've been on the show before. And also, I think our audiences probably are heavily cross-pollinated. However, where can people find you?
People can find me mostly. I have a newsletter. It's called Out of Your League. It is a queer sports newsletter for the most part. Sports and culture, I'd say. So that is mostly where you can find me. I am on socials, Instagram and Blue Sky as well. Those are the best places to find me. I'm trying really hard not to be on socials as much, but my job sort of relies on it. But my newsletter is great. I send out the things that I'm publishing, and also I have original writing, and there's a lovely community. So if you want to come hang out and talk to gay people who like watching sports, playing sports.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Frankie, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So, Christine, it is time once again for your Ombudsmom Corner.
Yes.
However, we have a twist this week.
Yes, I'm ceding my ombudsman time. Ombudsmom. I know how to say it. Oh my God.
You came up with the word.
I did. It's like a play on words. New word. Kate is going to be our ombudsmom today.
Yeah, I have a little mini rant that I want to get off my chest.
Please do.
Okay. Do you know who Bill Ackman is?
The name sounds familiar from the internet, but that's very nebulous.
Yeah, so he's like this Twitter guy who's also a billionaire and like an investment dude bro. He got very involved with like the Harvard anti-Semitism stuff and like the Columbia stuff. I think we did a whole episode about him before, I want to say, with before you came on as co-host, we did an episode with Parker Malloy.
Oh, great.
About this guy, Bill Ackman. So some of our listeners will be familiar, but I just want to say, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet, he's up on Twitter over the weekend going, like, Mr. President, this is not what we voted for. And I'm like, bitch, like, what do you think you voted for? Because that guy, like, Trump, every chance he got, he talked about the tariffs. Every single time he got up to speak, he mentioned tariffs. Did you think he was kidding? Like, are you too stupid to just not, like, just to, like, listen and believe what he says he's going to do? Because every single thing he's done so far are things that he expressly promised to do on the campaign trail.
In fact, that's why people who vote for him often say they like him.
Right. So get the fuck out of here with, this is not what we voted for. It's exactly what you voted for. And if you don't like it, perhaps you're too stupid to vote. Maybe sit out next time and let the adults handle it.
You know where I saw it? On Blue Sky, a screen grab from Twitter, X, whatever.
We dead named Twitter in this house.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, your rant said everything. So like, what else can I say? Like, what do you think you vote for or voted for? I don't know. Every day, like when I drive to pick up my kid from daycare, I put on NPR, which I think I've said like makes me a cliche, except like I'm screaming at it most of the time because some of the reporting's been really frustrating too.
I'll leave you with this. I frequently wonder what the lives of trans people are worth, and the market, since it started its little tariff crash, has lost about $11 trillion in market cap. So now we know the answer, that trans people as a collective are worth $11 trillion. People are willing to give up $11 trillion to get rid of trans people from their lives. And there's not that many of us. So like we're actually one of the most valuable commodities in this country if you stop and think about it. Cancel Me Daddy is a Flytrap Media production, and today's show was made by me, Caitlin Burns, my incredible co-host Christine Grimaldi, and our amazing editor Maria Paleologos.
Dee Peterschmidt made our theme song, and Romy Tarico designed our graphics. Ads by Multitude Productions.
Our show is made possible by the incredible cancelers supporting our work, especially the member of our Canceler Hall of Fame, with the great power to cancel all of their enemies, Meg.
We appreciate your support.
Happy canceling!